I am actually one of the publicists for this film. My name is Chris Gardner, and one of the heads of the Oak Cliff Film Festival in Dallas, Texas. So, not just speaking kindly because this is one of the people we represent, but because I love film and I love this film so much. And as a Dallas, Texas musician growing up in the 90s, I was super aware of Heater, but not so much aware of Mike Hosty Trio until I watched this film the first time, and I was like, holy shit, I absolutely saw them live. Couldn't tell you when. I think it was Fry Street Fair.
Okay.
I believe I saw them anyway. That doesn't mean anything to any of you, but that is a fact.
That's cool.
But there's a warmth about this film that I love so much, and a lot of that comes, I think, from the filmmaker himself who is here, and I want to bring him up and ask him a few questions. This is Christopher Fitzpatrick, filmmaker behind
Thank you.
Oklahoma Breakdown. So I do want to ask you just a couple things here, and I'm going to open it up to the audience. First and foremost, what was your first experience with Mike Hosty? Like, when did you first discover him?
I don't remember much about. It was actually Heater. It was in 1995 at it was like a fraternity party.
Yeah.
Which tells people it's like that was like another life ago, right? But I just remember it was like it was an outdoor, like in our front lawn, and when you're 18 and you're not really concentrating on everything that's going on stage with the music, you're thinking about other things, and so I don't remember it that well, but I do remember being very impressed with the guitarist, and I just loved the sound. And then about when I became of age, 21, I heard that Mike Hosty, that guy from Heater, is playing at the deli. We should all go check him out. And I remember showing up to the bar, it was packed, just like it explains in the film, and everybody was dancing. Everybody was on the floor having a great time, and just a line out the door, and you felt lucky to be inside and watching that. And it had a B3 organ, which if you're a college kid, you don't see, bands hauling a B3 into a college bar, a tight, you can fit like maybe 90 people.
These things weigh like 800 pounds.
Yeah.
Like, they're crazy hard to move.
Takes up half the room, basically.
Yeah.
And so I just remember being blown away by that experience. And then it was like every other Friday night they'd play there, and so we'd have to go see him.
Yeah. Man, that's I'm gonna consult my notes real quick.
Oh yeah,
I'm new at this, the Q&A thing. I just love this film so much, and I love Chris so much. I just wanted to kind of find some stuff out.
Thank you.
One thing that strikes me about him is that when he's on stage, he seems to be one guy. And when he's at home with his family, he seems to be a little bit more reserved, a little bit more he's a very enigmatic guy. So how was he when you were like, hey, I want to follow you around with a camera for a while and film all of your personal moments? What was that like?
I don't think he understood what was going on when I said, hey, I'd like to do a documentary on you. Because, according to a few people that worked at the deli, they're like, yeah, we've had some people come up here and do some stuff on him. And there had been like a short doc on the Hosty duo like 20 years ago. And there's a smidgen of that in the film that Bradley Beasley shot. Anyway, that was done in like 2000, I think. It was like 4 minutes, just something small. Just student project was another thing that I got my hands on that somebody had shot, just little bitty things. But then one guy did like a 22-minute thing on him, which was kind of cool. It was a local guy that did it, but not this in depth, not about his backstory, about his family, and about his father, which he never talks about, not even with his own brothers, hardly. That's kind of when I was like, I've got a story here. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but
you're on the right track. So that.
Yeah, it was just like kind of, eventually he started opening up to me, but it took like 3 years to get that stuff out of him about his personal life. I think when I showed up during COVID, everybody's got a little more time to kill during COVID, and I remember having like a 2.5 hour interview. We'd already interviewed, 4 or 5 times, but when we did an interview during COVID, he got into that stuff. And I actually showed up to the interview telling him I'd like to ask you more about your personal life. And I think, okay, he was ready for it, but when he got done, he was like, I think he was spent. I could tell it was emotionally, draining for him. So after that, when I showed up to interview him, I told him, I said, no more lights, no more camera. We're just gonna do a sit down. I'm gonna put a mic on you, like just a lavalier, and we're just gonna talk. And then it got deeper, really, emotionally connecting. And that's, honestly, I believe that's how you can take a good documentary into a really good documentary. Hopefully you think that. But that's how for me, was able to connect with him, and hopefully that connected with you, people that watch it.
Yeah, I mean, the use of the archival footage of old home videos and stuff like that really adds a lot. But I mean, you capture it all in a really fly-on-the-wall way, and he feels really comfortable with you. Like, he feels like, and I guess 3 years together will do that. But
Yes.
He feels like he's not afraid to kind of be himself. Like, again, when you're a performer, kind of have to separate your home life from your stage life, and so yeah.
When you're by yourself, it's different than when you're with, if you're covering a band, well, the band's around you,
Yeah.
and the band's going to be joking with you. And I remember that early on, like when I was working or as a student, I was covering an event for like the Norman high school baseball team. And I remember all the kids piling back there and watching the interviews, and they couldn't concentrate, and they were just joking around, and they took over the whole situation. I was like, I can't ever let that happen. I'd never forget that. And I'm like, when you have one person to talk to, you strip, like, they know the camera's there, but I think they feel like they're just having a conversation with you most of the time, especially when there's no lights. When you're in a car with them, it's just you and him talking, and I can ask him about questions, and he's cutting up jokes just like he would on stage. But that stuff in the house, like with him and his wife and the dog, that stuff, yeah, that took a while to get to the point where he was like, yeah, it's just Fitz coming by. So, he would just tell his wife, yeah, he's going to drop by. We don't know what he's doing. I'm going to show up with like I had made a DVD of that, recording when he was 16 that he'd given me. And I was like, I got it. I go, how old is Liam? He's like, he's 16. I was like, okay, I have an idea.
That's the living room recording.
That's the living room. Yeah, and I go, I have an idea. I go, would you be opposed to, watching this? He's like, I don't think he's ever seen it. I'm like, okay, perfect.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that turned out to be a pretty special moment, I thought.
I don't know if this is too inside, but Mike Byers.
Byers, yeah.
Yeah, Byers, I am
Sure.
sure. So you obviously talked to him to ask him about an interview.
Several times, yes.
What kind of conversation was that?
I had reached out to him multiple times, once on Instagram, and no response. And then I, tried, I don't think I had his phone number, but I tried to go up to Norman, and I'd heard he was playing some Sunday gig with the band, and he wasn't playing. So I drove up there for no reason. And finally, third time I drove up to the deli. He had been playing on a Wednesday night, also playing drums for another band. This is after they'd broken up. And we had a long talk outside, and he was like, I just don't know if I'm ready to talk about this. I don't know if it's too fresh. And he was not in a good way at the time. And I said, I understand. I said, I'll reach back out to you. I go, I'm just going to let you know, I have, you've been drumming with him for 25 years. I have to at least mention, I can't just ignore that you just broke up and I didn't talk to you. That would be a terrible, I come from journalism, and I was like, I have to at least explain that you either didn't talk to me. I'm not going to try to roast you. But then he honestly, he sort of threatened me on Instagram. It's a whole other story.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's had his own problems, and I think they actually recently just recently talked, but it was like real brief conversation. He had called him about something and wasn't a personal conversation. All Mike said he was really surprised. It was a really strange conversation, but they basically haven't talked at all about any of that. And it's like, what are you going to talk about? We've been in the band for 25 years. We ride in the van together, 200 to 250 nights a week, and they know each other so well. It just took them so long to figure that out, that it wasn't going to work out. And after a while, he started realizing, especially after he had heart surgery.
Yeah.
He was just like, why am I with this guy? Why am I doing this to myself? If I'm not happy, let's just let's do something different.
Seems contentious from the jump with the fight with him and Chris.
Yep.
Did you get an idea of what was the match on that powder box? Like, do you know what started that whole, like, why you would throw a kick drum pedal at someone's head?
There was just an argument, and it wasn't the first time that they had argued something like similarly to that. I don't know exactly what started, but because it was so long ago.
Right.
I kind of don't remember, but they just remember being at odds with each other. And that night, it was Mike Byers and Chris Weiser, yelling at each other. And yes, he threw a kick drum pedal at him, and that was pretty much it. But they actually had one more gig to play. They had to play the next night, which is I don't say in the film, but they said Chris Weiser, he told all his friends, he's like, yeah, if you want to come out, this is going to be it. This is it.
Yeah.
And he knew it. And Hosty, I think at that time he had finally talked to him, but he made sure to tell all his friends, well, you got to come out to the show tonight because we're not doing this again. And they didn't. And I think it was a long time between Chris and, I don't know if Chris and Mike talked maybe once after that.
Yeah.
Mike Byers.
Right.
But Chris was pretty, I was happy to see that Chris, the keyboard player, was very open about talking about their relationship, and having two strong songwriters in a band there's a lot of friction involved with that. But they had pretty much both gotten over that emotionally.
Yeah, you're young, and you think you're the top, and yeah, it's easy to overcome that as you get older and realize how limited time is. Yeah.
Yeah, and they've both gotten past it. And actually, Chris had mentioned something to me about maybe, he thought I was trying to steer together a Hosty Trio reunion, and as I was interviewing, I was like, that would be pretty cool. And so nothing's happened, but Byers won't be a part of it, I'm sure, if that ever happens. But his son Liam might play drums. Who knows? I'd love to see something like that happen and to capture it.
And I understand that you are is it okay to talk about that you might be having a musical performance from him at some future screenings, or?
St. Louis Obispo, he is going to be playing. He did at New Haven. It won Best Documentary or Best Feature at the New Haven Documentary Festival, and they invited him up there to come play, and he had never played on the East Coast, and that was his first gig on the East Coast ever. So I thought that was really special, and that's why I came out to. That's why I wanted to do this film, was to sort of expose the world to him. And there's a lot of serious documentaries out there, which it's amazing how people can really try to change something in the world. And on the surface, this may not feel like that, but what I'm trying to do is, when you watch him, when you go to a show, no matter what's going on in your life, he will bring you out of it, at least for that 2 to 3 hours. He's, it's such a lighthearted person, and it's just a fun show all the time, and it makes you forget about your life for a little bit and just enjoy it. And so that's kind of what I wanted to do with this, and if he can spread that joy to other people, maybe here in Oxford would be great. I don't know if he's ever even played Oxford. That's just, bit by bit, I'd like to have him spread that, and if I can help that in any way,
I love that. That's awesome, and I'm sure he also really appreciates that. He has such a great attitude.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of people that you write a song, you put your heart and soul into it, and if someone else gets famous from it, it'd be really easy to be like, this is bullshit, I hate this. But he's got a really great attitude about it, and he understands, like I said, success is subjective. It's never going to be exactly what you want. It's never going to be exactly what you expect.
More money, more problems.
More money, more problems. He just made that up just now. See? Brilliant mind. I don't want to steal a whole convo, because I'm sure some of you have some questions. Does anybody have anything that they would like to ask Chris about the film?
Hey, thanks for coming.
What does Mike think of the movie?
When he first it was a Phoenix, was the world premiere, and I remember my girlfriend here was sitting right next to me, and Mike was sitting right next to her, so she was splitting us, and she could feel the energies of both of us. Because he had never seen a frame of this. He hadn't seen anything. He didn't know what it was really about. He didn't know. He was probably wondering, he's asking me all these questions about my dad now. But I convinced him I'm like, you really need to come to the world premiere. So we did. He's a working musician, and they didn't have him play out there, which was, I thought that was, they kind of an oversight for a world premiere. I thought they could have had him come out and play. But anyway, he showed up to it, and after we stood up and everybody was gone, he stood up. He goes, Chris, that's the nicest thing anybody's ever done for me. And it's exhausting. I was like, oh, thank God. Because you don't know what they're going to think about all this personal stuff. And that was incredibly gratifying. And, I didn't go into this wanting just to be a fluff piece or a fan piece. I wanted to tell a story.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's difficult things to talk about, but with him, it's just it's so easy to none of that's fake. It's all real, and the fact that he opened up to me meant a lot to me. But he's been great, and he'll like stuff on Facebook, and he'll come, he'll retweet some stuff if I put it out on Twitter, and he's just been really great about it. And we got a screening coming up in Oklahoma, which hasn't been completely public yet, but it's coming up, and it's going to be special. And I keep thinking about that, what that audience is going to be.
Yeah.
It's screened once in Oklahoma, but this will be a bigger deal.
And it really does. It does have I'm going to say, impartial love letter. That sort of oxymoron, where it doesn't really like you said, it's not a fluff piece, but it does show how close I guess y'all got, and also how close you felt to it going into it. Because otherwise you wouldn't have made it if you didn't have a closeness.
Yeah, and we were friends kind of before this. He plays at like I said, 250 nights a year, and he sees a lot of familiar faces. It's not like he's playing for a packed bar every night. It'll be about as many people as are in this room sometimes, but that's how he gets to know people. Very personable, and so he remembers faces really well. And so after showing up to 60 to 70 gigs, even before I made this film, he kind of knew a little bit about me and where I was. And I remember one time he stopped, he had been done playing a gig, and he saw me get there late. I just gotten off work. He's like, oh, you missed the show? He's like, you want me to play a song? I was like, no, you don't have to do that. And he said, no, pick a song, I'll play it. So he went back up there and played it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's before I started making this. So he's, we've become closer, and He's not the easiest guy to make conversation with on texting. You have to try to get him on the phone because he doesn't really do anything on his phone. He's just he's old school.
Yeah.
And he just likes to create at home, and his Instagram following is really funny though. He's really obsessed with cones right now, like traffic cones.
Like pylons?
Like traffic cones.
Nice.
And anytime you see a cone, you may think of it differently, but it's like this never-ending story with traffic cones. Yeah, and he posts it on social media, and it makes me laugh every time.
That's awesome. Well, I have one.
Okay.
If you have one, though,
Of course.
yeah, do it.
I was hoping he would come around the corner and play for us,
Yeah, I know.
Incredible movie.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
You made me feel like I was a friend of his. You certainly showed that you were a friend of his, or are a friend of his, had that warm feeling. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Blaze Foley, if you will, but not that destructive side. Very creative cat. I just really enjoyed it, and I'm proud that you did it. But it is like just a little love letter you gave to him to show the world, and it was beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And it's what a documentary to me is supposed to be.
Well, that means everything to me.
It really is. It's a brilliant film. And
Thank
you're shining a light on a fella who probably doesn't like the light shown on him very much, but he should, because he shines it so brightly on everybody else. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's an incredible piece.
Thank you so much. And I remember during the making of this, there's moments in there when I started getting into his personal life. I'm navigating through this storytelling process over the years. And I remember thinking, showing stuff from his wedding, and I was like, is anybody going to care about this? Because they're not going to know who he is, and they're just want to, why do we care about this guy? And I think somebody had, I don't know, what it was, TED's talk or something like that. They were like, make me care. And I thought about that. I'm like, well, if somebody's going to sit through at least that 30-minute portion of the front part of the film, you're there to entertain and to show them what this guy went through, and you're trying to feel it through him, and that's what I started having to understand. I'm expressing this for him because he can't do it on his own in this situation, and so I just tried to kind of put myself in his shoes every time I had him speak and make sure that it was representing what he intended on saying.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, he doesn't really care about he appreciates credit. But he doesn't care about fame. He really doesn't care about fame. And that last little monologue kind of says it all.
Right,
He's
exactly.
like, I don't want to.
Now, what about the Stoney thing? How did that song get to Stoney? Were they? I might be having a brain fart or something.
No, it's okay.
Were they friends or?
So yeah, the whole Red Dirt scene, which talked a little bit about that. That's how Stoney kind of knew about him, and he looked up to him and saw him play at these bars. And Stoney started playing,
Right.
After Mike had already started hitting the scene. I think Mike's 5 or 6 years older than Stoney, and
were they kind of friends?
so they knew each other. Yes,
They knew
definitely.
each other.
And I think there was some Red Dirt Cafe. They had some Red Dirt night
Right.
at the deli where Mike is known to play, and it was like a Monday night, and Stoney had come in there. I guess he'd come in a day early, and he saw Hosty play on a Sunday night, and he was like, he saw how the crowd reacted, as he says in the film, and he was like, man, I'd really like to cover that song. And Mike's like, okay. Didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
And honestly, it kind of screwed him out of royalties for like about a 6 to 8 month window, because he didn't have him sign anything, and that's when, if you hit a hit song and it takes off, that's the spike you want if you're going to get compensated as a songwriter. He didn't have any of that, and so he missed a spike. And then right as he signed that deal, Stoney's going to give him royalties for it. That's when like CD sales like plummeted and online became a thing, and so he missed out on a lot more money that he probably should have been.
Did Stoney give him a little something, a little bonus, buy him a brand new fan or something? Should have.
No, he even told
I mean?
he even told me in the interview, he's like, I don't get to hand him a check and say good job, but he was like, but I hope he's getting something out of it. That's pretty much what he told me. But no, I mean, but Mike's also never complained about Stoney. I mean, yeah. I think any beef he has, he's probably like, I wish I would have done this, signed this contract earlier. But and then not knowing how much you actually get from Spotify plays,
Right.
he didn't know quite all that, and wishes that he had
This is nothing.
a better deal. Yeah,
It's like a fraction of a penny for every 100 plays. And
Yeah.
But
But
anyways, your picture's great, and the guy's cool as hell, and I hope to find him someday on my travels, wherever I might be. I certainly would love to be in the same room with that cat. just to listen to him and feel that positive vibe that he gives off, even on the big screen that you captured so well.
When I still go see him play, I saw him in Fort Worth the most recent time, a month ago, and I'm just crying, laughing. Like,
Oh yeah. Now
is
are
that
you
good?
from Oklahoma also?
I went to school in Oklahoma in '94 to '98, and that's where I saw him play.
Right.
And then, of course, coming up, I'd worked in Oklahoma occasionally. I'd come up for work. I live in Dallas now,
Right.
but I do work in Oklahoma occasionally, and every time I'd be there a couple nights or I have family there, I'd be like, where is he playing?
Right.
I'd try to go see other artists, but they would just never
He
do it.
just sucks you right in.
Can't.
Yeah,
They.
why wouldn't he?
There's just no. You can't. I've never seen. Unless it's like Radiohead is my favorite
Right.
live band, and of Montreal is kind of a quirky indie band, which I bet you know.
They're both great.
And then it's like Mike Hosty. It's like those are my top 3 live bands I've ever seen. So when you have something that close to you in your backyard, kind of,
Right.
it's hard to
Now,
not go see.
Are you a filmmaker? Are you doing other projects or?
Just starting to work on a couple other things because I'm still, I wore like every hat in this film except for composer basically. So I'm also having to push this film to a distributor.
Well, you're a one-man band too.
And then it's really true, kind of, and he inspired me. Like
Yeah.
anytime I'd get in a rut where I'm like, God, this is exhausting. I got to call somebody to get rights to this, or I got to figure out I got to do this film festival stuff, like everything. I'm doing everything, and I don't have anybody to lean on. And I'm like, well, Mike Hosty does all his own publishing, and he's up there with playing 3-part drums and thumbing the bass and playing rhythm and playing solo and writing his own lyrics and doing everything too.
Right.
While being a parent, I'm like, yeah, it's kind of inspiring. Kind of made me want to. I'm like, I can do this,
Did
and
you ever pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Mike, I'm a little stressed out. Had you, just want to hear your voice or something." You know what I mean? Hey.
Just to know that I think he appreciated me calling him, just knowing I was still, if this was actually going to happen. I think he started grasping. It's like, he's really actually asking me a lot of stuff, but I think he cares.
Sure he does.
So,
Yeah.
I
Great
try.
job, man. Great job.
Thank you, and I appreciate all the laughter.
Oh, hell, man.
I think we got time for one more. If anybody has one more question, and then if not, I have one that you may or may not be able to answer, but I'm just curious about.
Happy to
I'm
try.
sure you got to look at his studio or where he like his gear setup. What's his pedal count? Like, what is he using as far as effects
God.
pedals? It looked like a lot, and I just didn't know if he gave you a number.
No, when you're a one-man band, you only have so many places you
Sure.
can't stand up and walk around
Yeah.
because you're trying to play the drums, and so you're having to reach over and hit things. I don't know the pedal count, but it took me a while to figure out. There was one part in there where he reaches down and he flips. There's a switch he flips just to change the tone of his guitar to what would sound like a fuzz, like a bass fuzz,
Yeah.
And then he flips it back again, and he's doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the most remarkable thing about his live performance is he's not relying on loops and triggers, and it's just like mind blowing to me. Like how you can have a conversation. I'm gonna drop the kick drum, and you're gonna flip the lights on, and you're gonna scream like you're watching a blues performer. And he just lets him do it, and he goes right into this guitar riff. I'm like, and he told me, when he's doing all this stuff, he almost can focus better when he's doing a ton of things instead of one thing. Like if he's playing just guitar for a band now, like if he sits in for somebody, he said it's not really. He probably plays better guitar when he's doing all the other things.
Yeah, takes your mind off of it.
It takes his mind off of it. I don't know how he does it with the rhythm and all that, but he's just able. He said, "I'll be sitting there and I'll be playing the drums. I'll be thinking of the next lyric, and I'll be playing the guitar and the bass." And he's like, and I'll see somebody with popcorn in their mouth, and I'll make a joke about that here in a second. He'll stop and he'll tell a joke, and after he gets done, he's like, I go, "How do you do that?" He goes, "I don't know."
That's awesome.
I don't know.
If you tried to figure it out, it wouldn't work anymore. See, that's the thing.
Right.
Has to happen organically, people. That's art.
That's art. That's genius, and it's magic.
Oh,
Has
yeah.
it been recognized in Oklahoma, like Arts and Letters Awards and things like that, or Governor Awards, or?
It's funny you brought that up. He actually the mayor had him play it at some thing like this past week, and he took a picture with the mayor of Oklahoma City, David Holt. And David Holt's there wearing a tie and suit and tie, and there's Mike Hosty with a Midway Deli sweatshirt on.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
He doesn't change. But yeah, I didn't need to make this for him to get some credit in Oklahoma, but I think it made when it premiered at Dead Center, it made the front page above the fold on the Sunday news. I was like, that is recognition. That was really cool for him to have that. And I wanted to call it Mike Hosty Day in Oklahoma, but he's not in the Oklahoma Music Hall of Fame, which is crazy to me. It's like, Kings of Leon and just bands that sometimes just spiked and
Kings
like,
of
oh,
Leon.
you're famous, so
Yeah.
you're gonna be.
You had one hit like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
No shame to Kings of Leon fans.
You should send him this tape. You should send everybody this film.
Well, that's my intention.
You know,
Yeah.
arts, it's a hell of a piece, man.
I'm just glad you showed. I have a question. Why did you come to see this? Did you? What drew you to it?
I saw the poster out there, and then I read a little thing. He's a genius one-man band, and it just drew me into somebody that creative, and it was that simple. I looked over other things in the program, and I said, that's me. I like a little wackiness, and somebody that's a genius, and somebody who wants to film somebody like that and show the rest of the world. I'm very interested.
Well, I'm glad you. We'll tell John. Thanks for the placement
Yeah.
of the poster. If you want to see a really even a better poster than that, go check out Crush.
Yeah.
Just go look that one up. It's the best poster I've ever seen, maybe. And
This is great cross promotion.
yeah,
huh?
well, I mean,
When's Crush playing, sir?
Sunday.
This is wonderful synergy.
Awesome.
I love it. This is
that your
great.
film?
Yes.
Are you Crush?
I'm not crushed.
No.
We all wish we were crushed.
Oh, really?
None of us
Do
are.
we all have a little Crush in us?
Crush the wrestler.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
and if you really look close at the poster.
Yeah, so I just was passing by, and looking for something different to see. I'm a juror and for all the Mississippi films, so I've seen a lot of, I saw the Mississippi music, so I saw the shorts and the features.
Thank you.
So I wanted to see what else is out there.
All right.
And I love the big screen,
Oh yeah. Well, Fitz, thanks so much for bringing this to us and showing it to everybody. And it's just such a great film, and
Yeah.
always wonderful to see you. I have to do this all professionally, like I don't
I know,
know
it's
you
funny.
outside of this. But like,
Thank you, man.
I mean,
No, I appreciate it.
Christopher Fitzpatrick, not Fitz. Yeah, it's just so let's give it up one more time.
Hey.
Oklahoma Breakdown.
Thank you.
Christopher Fitzpatrick.